your birds and hedgehogs question, you will most likely get some species that you've never heard about. In this case, there were different birds, and we're not all ornithologists. But the key bit out of that information here is that they're laying their eggs in nests on grounds rather than up in a tree. They are laying eggs on grounds. That's for the context. That's the most important. You've been told there are two areas in the Scottish Islands that you're observing: area 1 without hedgehogs, area 2 with introduced hedgehogs. And then more information that hedgehogs actually eat all sorts of things, but they will resort to eggs if they get hold of eggs. The first question is actually, the whole scenario is irrelevant. It's a maths question. The first question is literally, you have got calculate the percentage change. Percentage change, you will get that, whether you get it heart rate before and after exercise. What's the percentage change? But in fetus growing from so many months to so many months of gestation. So you're going to get a percentage change maths thrown in somewhere. What information have you got? That's your starting point, your 1288. That's your end point, your 760. Okay, your percentage change is difference divided by the starting point times 100. That's your standard, difference divided by the starting point. So take those numbers away from each other, divide them by the 1288, then times 100. Should give you 41%. So look at the calculation, difference divided by your starting point, difference divided by original. I was a maths teacher, and then times 100. There are different ways of getting to that. The rounding would be nice to see that as well. Okie and number in the table ideally. It's telling you then, with reference to the data and the information provided, evaluate the conclusion that hedgehogs are the main reason for the decline. Evaluate with the data you've got given and all the information you've got given from the text. Do you know? To what extent do you know, or do you not know that hedgehogs are the main reason for the decline in wading birds? That's your task. Look at the numbers. Do you know? It's the hedgehogs themselves. In area 1, no hedgehogs. It seems to be that without hedgehogs present, the first two species here seem to do particularly well. However, the other two species are in decline. So maybe there's a different reason for the decline. Can't be the hedgehogs. However, all the numbers here are negative. So can you say the hedgehogs are having an impact? From the first two numbers, from the lupin and the redshank, you can say that, yeah, there is a decline, whereas without hedgehogs, they're doing remarkably well. However, for the other two species, you can't draw the same conclusion because actually they seem to be in decline everywhere. Stronger for the hedgehogs, more decline there, percentage decline, but actually, yeah. The mark scheme is voicing this or giving words to that in the following way. All species declined in the presence of hedgehogs in area 2. So spotting that gives you a mark. However, not the only cause, as Dublin and snipe, so the second two species also declined in area 1 where there were no hedgehogs. And then other numerical references would have given you the mark. Even if your calculated percentage for the redshanks is wrong, I can still give you a mark if you've made the correct comment on that. So bear that in mind. Even if you've got a calculation and it goes wrong, keep going, keep running with it, because you can always get marks here and there. Okay, this one here, that's a pro and cons question, 2 marks. Okay, 1 advantage, 1 mark, 1 disadvantage, 1 mark. For expressing the change in the number of breeding pairs as a percentage. So is it good at representing numbers as a percentage? Can I remind you of the potato practical, the osmosis practical, where you had to express the mass gain or mass lost as a percentage because the initial mass of that potato was really hard to get to the exact 5 grams, hence percentage. Okay, same idea here. If you compare a species where you have got 200 birds and the other species where you've got 600 birds, and you're trying to compare those numbers, having it as percentages, that works. That is actually allowing you a better comparison that way round. However, the disadvantage, if you've got a species where you've got a really small number left only, so you've only, let's say, got 40 birds left of that particular species. Losing just 1 or 2 birds gives you a huge percentage change, and it may look disproportionate. So how does the mark scheme express that? You can compare with the different starting numbers, such as like the potato practical. The disadvantage, if the numbers are small, yeah, then the change from 1 loss or 2 losses can result in a more significant change, or it may look like it's more significant than it actually is. Cool. Back to the questions. Here we go. State 2 factors which could have allowed a very large population of hedgehogs to have been produced from the original 7 values, 7 individuals. So 7 hedgehogs were taken over by someone who had slugs in their garden to eat them. Why would they do particularly well? No predators, no natural predator there to eat the hedgehogs, and also a lot of food availability. You can keep going with nesting sites, with lack of disease, with all sorts. What does it actually let you have here? Okay, no natural predators, no abundance of food. Oh, less traffic, so no roadkill, or far less hedgehog roadkill. It's nice to give you that as a mark, because that's one of the main reasons for hedgehog numbers dwindling the way that they are doing. Okay, where are we now? It now gives you a new scenario. I'm going to have to reread this because I can't remember that from marking it. Brown rats, polecats, and gulls are also predators. An investigation into the effect of hedgehogs on wader eggs was carried out. 2 plots of land were enclosed by hedgehog-proof fencing, and all the hedgehogs were removed. An area of land adjacent to similar was not fenced as a control. Egg loss in the fenced and unfenced areas was compared, and the type of predator causing the egg loss was recorded. And now your actual question is, state why it is necessary to carry out such a study before the decision was made to control the number of hedgehogs. Right, what would you do if you had a decision? If you had a decision made, it's the hedgehogs that kill all the wading birds. What would you have to do to the hedgehogs? You would have to cull them. You would actually have to cull them. Culling, that's mass killing. Okay, it happens every now and then. I've done it with the badgers not long ago. It needs to happen to deer regularly. If the ecosystem is out of balance and it is one species' fault, it sounds a bit wrong, but if you've got one species growing overly populated, then that needs a little bit of external control by humans to cull them off. So if you're culling them, that's not quite ethical if it isn't actually their fault. That's killing animals. So especially if hedgehogs are low in numbers, which is going to happen a bit later on in the question there. So why would you have to make that study? It tells you here that there are other predators. To be able to say definitely and for certain that it was the hedgehogs, you need to kind of exclude them as a potential cause for the declining wader bird numbers. Okay, the mark scheme goes about it this way round. Here we go. To confirm that the hedgehogs were responsible for the decline, and to assess the impact of other predators. It's a nice short way of saying that. Okay, then you've got in the question, you have got 3 different methods, and it kind of, you can see by the way it's already laid out, you've got 3 different methods, 1, 2, and 3, how to do the same thing, which is scenario, and that is realistically the problem. We have got a significant fall in hedgehog numbers already in the British countryside, so low numbers. However, we've got too many hedgehogs on that particular island. So what could we possibly do? The following measures were proposed to control the hedgehog numbers in the Western Isles. So those, I think it was area B earlier in the question. Suggest one ecological problem from each of those measures. So if you are now an environmentalist and you're working to control the hedgehog numbers on that island in Scotland, what can you do? What are your options, and why could each of them actually lead to a problem? Trapping and moving hedgehogs to the mainland. So it's not asking you for the benefit. The benefit would be you're repopulating the countryside. The British countryside needs to have hedgehogs. So yeah, that would be a great thing, but it's not asking you about that one. It's asking you an ecological problem. They might carry a disease. Anything you're moving from one place to another might carry a disease. So yeah, introduced species always have got the possibly overpopulating the new area, in which case, in this case, that's not very likely, but the disease, and a bit like the red squirrel or grey squirrel situation where the grey ones came over resistant to a disease and the red ones are falling flat and dying. Right, that's the first one here. The second idea on how to control the hedgehogs is to erect fences, a 1 meter high hedgehog-proof fence. There actually is in Australia, there's a rabbit-proof fence. So food for thought. Problem is, if you've got such a high fence, who can get, or which other animal species can jump across that or climb through the gaps between the netting of that fence? Will it affect other species? That's your key question here. And the last one here, ecological problem. If you're suddenly removing the, yes, humane killing, they didn't use the word culling here, but that is literally what it is. Careful, it doesn't ask you about the ethics. Your question was ecological problem, not the ethics. Yeah, just killing them is not ethical anyway, but ecological problems. If you're removing a predator, what happens to your entire food web? What's the impact of that? Will something else take over? Will the natural ecosystem just be established again? Okay, so the fence one, preventing movement of other species, and this one with the killing them off. First, yeah, it does actually, weird enough, allow you the ethical aspect. I wouldn't have given that because it says ecological. Nice, Mark Scheme, it's nice with you. However, all right, so it gives you the number of protected species. It gives you that as an ecological problem, and it doesn't even consider what I would have considered there. Here we go, not 100% for me in that question. So it gives you the wrong to kill the species when they're already in decline, and the protected species argument. Interesting. I would have shot past that mark here. Right, here we go. That was question 4, I believe. No, it was question 5 already.